Conservative Party, who at four separate occasions was asked to withdraw his remarks by the Speaker of the House and did not do it. So who's lacking respect, rather, in our democratic institutions? So on that, Mr. Chair, I'm not going to keep going forever. I know it's 8 p.m., but the little Cajun in Ontario, it's a very long time that they've been here in Ontario and speaking Cajun, and it is really insulting to be treated in this way, to be called the warm corpses, and I recognize the initiative of the Legault government to promote Canadian Francophonie, and also my own government, who passed a bill to support Canadian Francophonie and official languages, but also put money behind it, $4.1 billion over 5 years. But the leader of the opposition, when it was the minister, they actually froze the funding. And we all know the math that goes into it that really hurt official language minority communities. And on that note, Mr. Chair, and I do recognize what my colleagues are trying to do. I have respect. It's not personal. It's petty politics, and I understand it fully. But it's also doublespeak when it comes to me personally, when you consider some of their own colleagues in their own caucuses. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Drouin. Mr. Sanson, and then we'll go to Mr. Baudieu. Mr. Sanson. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I really liked the remarks and comments of my colleague, Mr. Drouin, who is someone who's really well known for his work that he has done to promote French language in Canada. It takes people like him to continue the fight, because with C13 we're going to achieve a lot more, but we will always have work to do. It takes soldiers, is a saying where I come from. So you need people who will defend the cause and who will really stand up for what they believe and who will be there for their people. And Mr. Drouin has just explained his history, but he's still very young and he has a lot that he can still offer. That is why I wish for him to continue to do the work he has done. I'm disappointed, I must say, very disappointed with political parties who are engaging in petty politics. You underlined the importance of respecting witnesses. But where we are as we speak is really targeting one's reputation. And I'm extending my hand to my colleagues on the other side. And Mr. Genereux, for instance, will work together since 2015, maybe even before. I'm really extending my hand to them. It's time we resumed committee work. I understand that their leader and their political party is applying pressure. I have respect for that. All the parties do that. But it takes individuals with principles, and it takes people who have firm beliefs, and people should really take up all the space they need to take up so that Francophonie can continue to grow. Doing that is not easy, but do it. You know that the name of the game is spending time. My colleague from the bloc, for whom I have a lot of respect, said, or rather referred to the leader of the opposition who was removed from the House of Commons, the democratic institution where the speaker is in charge of ensuring democracy. And he said, well, look at him, he was removed. Well, my dear colleague, Mr. Beaulieu, he was removed because he did not apologize. He simply did not apologize, Mr. Beaulieu. My colleague apologized 6 times. And we need people like him to support the Francophonie and to put a halt to the decline. And we will do that all together. But you need to really face your leaders and say that, well, the hunt is over. He apologized. He's a solid individual. He will continue to contribute. That's what I think. It's no longer a question of motion this or motion that. Just say, or rather say this to yourself, that your political parties cannot stop you from leading the charge. You shouldn't really be attempting this against the reputation of principled individuals like him. You all have this responsibility. It's not easy, I understand. It can be hard, it can hurt. It takes guts, I understand. But you are all elected representatives because you are people of principle. That's the emotion I want to see from you. I can guess, or I know what your leaders told you, but leave that aside, put that in the drawer, forget your situation here, but remind yourself of your devotion to the French language. But what we're now doing is attacking the reputation of an individual, of a good soldier, as goes the expression. And we were referring to the Conservative MP who lacked respect to the minister. She apologized, and that was it. That was the end of it. That no one went after her after that. That did not start a world war. So stop playing games and let's carry on with our work. We have a year and a half before us. If we want to finish our study, that's all the time we have left. And as my colleague, Mr. Beaulieu, was really saying, well, we really should go forward with the study on post-secondary institutions, or Ms. Ashton, who wants us to focus on a study on early childhood. That is crucial. That's key in the life of a society. And we also want to look into the funding for school boards. And for the first time since early 90s, and also even for the first time in the history of Canada, we finally have the right to education in French. It's no longer under the authority of Anglophone school boards. This is what I'm talking about. I am talking about you also. So please stop. This is not about political parties or leaders or following instructions. The games must come to an end. Let's do what is good for French. You are all here to make sure that we can continue the charge, as I explained, because it's still a struggle. And C13 will help us a lot. It's a toolbox with many tools in it, but we have to go back to doing our work. It's time for us to assume our work and light a flame and lead and open up a path and say that, well, we're all soldiers who are defending the cause of the French language in Canada, and I will tell my party, listen, it's over. The war of attacking the reputations of soldiers who have defended this cause since a very young age, and all of his family as well. Well, he has apologized so many times. I no longer want to play games. I know that your leaders told you, well, go there and move a motion and continue to criticize and go after the reputation of this individual. But I'm asking everyone around this table who has any influence on their parties, please assert your influence. And I can say this because I have this experience. While on C13, I voted against my party on many occasions. It's not easy. I defended the principles. And people asked me the question of how I felt voting against my party. I did not vote against my party. I voted in line with my principles. So what I want to see on the other side of this room is also principled individuals. So take things in your own hands, take charge, and make sure you're supporting individuals like him who are supporting the French cause in Canada. So let's work together. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sanson, Mr. Beaulieu, and then Ms. Ashton. Okay, I have the floor now because you did not give me the floor a couple minutes ago. Okay, that's what I thought was going to happen. What I will say is this. Since the meeting we had, 2 meetings before now, 2 meetings ago, Mr. Drouin apologized, and whether he defends French in Ontario or not, that is not what's at stake here. And after that, we had systematic filibustering, and we had to rely on a 106-4 to get to this point because they blocked us, prevented us from voting on this. And Mr. Drouin actually lost his legitimacy in terms of the mandate of supporting the status of French in Quebec, but outside of Quebec as well. It's not about being an extremist like other MPs like Mr. Housefather and others, but I will withdraw the word extremist. When you have Mr. Rodriguez who says the bloc was dividing people based on their skin color, well, I didn't really see anyone blaming him, criticizing him. I am an anti-racist. But when I have witnesses who indirectly say that we're racists and all that, and bring Quebec into the discussion from this angle. So we had the incident during the meeting, but then he doubled down, saying that he wasn't okay being taken for a dumb person. So he kept on accusing the witnesses. And when you say someone is not competent, is incompetent, or is treating someone else as an idiot, it goes in a different direction. So it's really misinterpreting the words of the witnesses. Now I understand the nuance in that, but it's too little too late after what was said. You can go back and dig into the archives and come up with many things from the past 40 years. Just a second, Mr. Beaulieu. Mr. Godin, go ahead. Mr. Chair, I think there needs to be a certain decorum around the table. I'm seeing MPs from the other side speaking at the same time amongst themselves as my colleague is speaking. So, because we haven't said a word in the last little while. So, Mr. Godin, if the mics were on, I would have intervened. But you are also doing the same, talking to your staff and not listen to what's being said on the other side. This happens at committee. This is not your first rodeo. And everyone can do that, and it goes in both directions, and every member does this. If the mics were on, I would have intervened, but the mics were not on, so I did not do that. This is not a point of order. It's not about who is looking you in the eyes as they're speaking, Mr. Godin.
Go ahead, Monsieur Beaulieu. To me, we're not attacking anyone's reputation. We simply think that Monsieur Drouin went too far. And whether or not he defends Franco-Ontarians, I have no doubt that he does. But telling us that we are not defending their rights, he was there, and so was Monsieur Serré. All Liberals were there when we had the clause-by-clause study, because we were defending every single communities where Francophones, Acadians, everyone. So to tell us that we're not defending the French language, it's misinformation. Even before I was a member, I supported Montfort. I was in gathering for the French University in Ontario. We're not trying to tell Francophones outside of Quebec what they should do. I've always supported their views, even though sometimes I don't think they go far enough. It's none of my business. On the other side, what Monsieur Drouin did was very despicable. Point of order, Monsieur Serré. Could Monsieur Beaulieu provide us articles showing us that he supported Francophones outside of Quebec? This is not a point of order, Monsieur Beaulieu. Please come back to the motion. I could easily demonstrate my support. I think this is in order. It would be out of order if we were just stating that he should, that if we would proclaim him as, resigned. But I think we are entitled to our opinion, and I think the committee is doing its part, and then we'll have to decide. Madame Ashton, point of order, Monsieur Serré. I've heard Monsieur Beaulieu earlier talking about members as being extremist. He withdrew his remarks, but he didn't apologize. Could we ask him to apologize? Again, the committee, not the committee or the chair, can impose sanctions or measures. All I can do is ask people to withdraw their remarks, which he's done, just like Monsieur Drouin has done. But as chair and as committee, we cannot ask members to do anything. Madame Ashton has the floor now. Thank you very much. First of all, I'm disappointed that we're here for a second meeting during a constituency week, a day that is a day off for our families. We'll have a busy week here in Western Canada. We've had historical wildfires, especially in my riding. I had to take care of that. And unfortunately, we have to deal with the situation that happened in our committee. That being said, I think it's important to meet and to take position as a committee to see that the behavior of one of our members is unacceptable, that behavior is unacceptable as a member of the Standing Committee on Official Languages. It is not appropriate behavior for the chair of a parliamentary association of la francophonie. And I think it's important for us to take this stand as a committee, because it's not just one member that is affected, it is the reputation of the whole committee. This week, I got feedback from a lot of people, and I would like to anonymously tell you what someone who's very well respected in the Francophone community outside of Quebec, someone who's been a witness on this committee before, someone who, while we were discussing a different topic, raised the fact that he was concerned by the behavior that he witnessed in one of our members during that meeting. This is a strong person who's very passionate about Francophone affairs, and they raised the issue and asked me the question, should we expect more witnesses to be treated this way? And I'm telling you, this is someone who has views that we need to hear in our committee, someone who shares views and experiences that are very important. And what I'd like to say is, how many people think the same way that this person does now? People who are coming to our committee to share their opinions, their experience, their views. Unfortunately, even now, people have this thought, is it possible that they will be treated this way? If any of us disagree with the witness. This is why I'd like to reiterate it's important that as a committee we take a stand saying that this behavior is not appropriate for anyone sitting around this table, and the Parliamentary Assembly represents us internationally also. And at the NDP we do not question Monsieur Drouin's commitment or that of anyone else around this table regarding their will to defend the French language. It's a shame that this conversation became so loud. I don't think that this is what really is at the center of the issue. We're talking about a behavior that showed disrespect towards witnesses and disrespect towards this committee and future witnesses. We have all been in politics for a while now. I've been an MP for almost 16 years now. As you know, there's a lot of issues that I'm very passionate about. I've disagreed with people in other committees, whether it is this one or others. I've disagreed also with witnesses presenting to committees, but never the way we've seen. And to me, to simply say, we've apologized without taking any actions and putting any measures in place, without stopping and thinking that maybe I should take a step back from the committee and the assembly to think back on what I've done and the impact of my actions on the committee. To me, this is very troubling and shows a lot of arrogance. And unfortunately, it's not the first time that we see arrogance from politicians. And I don't think that this is the spirit of this committee, a committee that's worked hard on modernizing the Official Languages Act, a committee that has to respect every communities, whether it is the Anglophone community, the Francophone community, all minority language communities. So this is our position. We're simply talking about the reputation of our committee, the message that we want to send to future witnesses, the message that we're sending to Canadians, to Quebecers who follow our work. It simply goes to the reputation of this committee. And for us in the NDP, we hope that we can make a decision as a committee and then we can keep working within a spirit of respect with disagreements, but respectfully, so that we can carry out our business as a committee now and in the future. And that is the reason why we are supporting the motion on the table. And we hope we'll be able to make a decision as a committee as soon as possible. Thank you, Madam Ashton. I've heard everyone who wanted to talk about the motion. I will read it again, Monsieur Beaulieu. Let me... is it too late? I raised my hand. I simply want to say if it's out of order or not. Thank you, but I have comments that I thought about. Yeah, but I've said earlier that after Madame Ashton, I would give my ruling. Monsieur Beaulieu, what you're proposing is as follows. Given the obscene and offensive comments made by the Liberal MP for Glengarry Prescott Russell to a witness defending the cause of the French language in Quebec, the committee report to the House, A, that the chief government whip and member of the Liberal leadership team immediately remove MP Francis Drouin from the Standing Committee on Official Languages, and B, that MP Francis Drouin resign as the chair of the Assemblée parlementaire de la Francophonie. Are we on the right page, Monsieur Beaulieu? Yeah, okay. For our transcriptions for the blues, I thought about it, I've read, I've consulted with people who know more about procedures. So whether or not this motion is out of order, I'm coming back to the fact that not the chair nor the committee can censor the remarks made by one of our members. So my comments are on this committee. I will talk about the APF later. But if we are talking about this committee, it is very clear. In Chapter 20, in our rule book, that neither the committee nor the chair have the power to censor disorder or misconduct. When Monsieur Drouin asked a question and was going to use the language we know he used, I had my gavel in the hand and I was ready to tell him to withdraw, but he withdrew before I could ask. We cannot judge how sincere he was. As one of us said earlier, he barely apologized. We're not talking about the degree of the apology. But before I could even act as chair and bang the gavel, the member withdrew his comments immediately. I just wanted to remind us of this fact. To have good order in committee, we have no other recourses to go further, asking for sanctions or asking for measures such as the one in the motion, asking the chief government whip to remove him from the standing committee or asking him to resign from the APF. Those are measures the chair nor the committee can ask him to do this. I'm not interpreting the standing order. That is what the standing orders are saying. We can make report, but that's what the standing orders is saying. So even with letter A, just by reading the line A, it's like the committee could choose who becomes a member and who couldn't. And we know this is not up to us. Just to tell you how out of order this motion is. As for B, if we would have said that MP Francis Drouin resign as the chair of the Club Richelieu International for youth in Francophonie. I don't know if that's what they do in Quebec, but that's what they do back home. Whether or not they're parliamentary, it's linked to la Francophonie. So that association, that club would simply ask us, why is the committee telling us who can be chair or not, who can be a member or not? This is the exact same situation. Even Parliament cannot ask the APF to choose who will be a member or not. It's not our responsibility. Chapter 20. Neither committee nor the chairs can impose censorship due to misconduct. There was misconduct that was a situation that was solved by the MP himself before we could impose consequences. If it would have carried on in this disorderly conduct, as a chair, what I can do is to suspend the meeting until we are back to order. And if order doesn't come back, well, then I can adjourn the meeting. But we didn't have to go this far because what was said by Monsieur Drouin, that was unparliamentary, was withdrawn immediately. So we are in the set of the standing orders imposed by the House. Again, what I'm explaining, I'm not trying to interpret a gray area. I'm telling you exactly what the standing order is saying. We cannot ask a whip, or anyone else for that matter, because it's not our responsibility to accept or exclude a member of this committee, just like we can't ask an independent organization with their own rules and that doesn't depend on our committee to tell us who can be a member or not. I'm telling you this very seriously. The reason being that it would be embarrassing for our members that the APF look at us and ask us, what are you doing? Who do you think you are, members of this committee? Not to understand this would be embarrassing, but we have rules. I'm telling you that this motion is out of order, as it is written by you, Monsieur Beaulieu. According to me, it is out of order. Again, simply because this is what the standing orders set out. I would like to talk to the clerk. I'll be right back.
Je reviens sur les exemples.
I'm back. So, an example closer to us. I was talking about the International Richelieu Club, but it's like if the chair of the National Defense Committee would ask someone to resign. This is how embarrassing it would be for this committee if we were to do this. But that being said, I've made my ruling. Sorry, Monsieur Beaulieu, Madame Fortier, Monsieur Godin, we have a point of order. Can I speak? Yep, point of order. Mr. Chair, I think that we need to debate your ruling. Madame Fortier requested to speak before you started. I have Monsieur Beaulieu before. All right, I'll give the floor to Monsieur Beaulieu, but you understand what I'm trying to tell you is that Madame Fortier wanted to speak, and you hadn't even started explaining your ruling.
Tiens, levez les mains par après encore.
I agree with you, but Madame Fortier rose her hand afterwards. We're two people taking down the list. And so what order am I in? You're number 3. Beaulieu, Fortier, then Godin. Monsieur Beaulieu, your hand was up first. Go ahead. Well, I'd like to appeal your decision, Mr. Chair, because I consider that we're simply asking the committee to report and saying he shouldn't be part of the committee. We're not kicking him out per se. And regarding the Assemblée parlementaire de la francophonie, well, it's MPs who vote on this. And now I see that Liberals are recruiting a lot of members so that this doesn't go through, right? But it's not as independent from Parliament as you say. Monsieur Beaulieu, clearly, if you're asking, well, yes, that's what I was about to say. Did you want to say anything else on that topic? If you asked to appeal the chair's decision, it's not debatable. We'll go to the vote right now. Is that what you're doing? All right. Go ahead, Mr. Clerk.
Donc, sur la motion,
So on the motion that the decision of the chair is maintained, Monsieur Serré.
En faveur.
Madame Koutrakis,
En faveur.
Madame Fortier,
En faveur.
Monsieur Sanson.
Oui.
Monsieur Melilot.
Non.
Monsieur Dalton.
Non.
Monsieur Généreux.
Non.
Monsieur Godin.
Non.
Monsieur Beaulieu.
Non.
Et Madame Ashton.
Non.
Contre 6 pour 5.
Donc, la décision de la présidente.
Accordingly, the chair's decision is successfully appealed. Madame Fortier, then Monsieur Godin, then Monsieur Serré. Madame Fortier, go ahead. I'll actually yield the floor now because I don't know what we're going to speak of since your decision was overturned. We're on Mr. Beaulieu's motion, which I read into the record earlier. So we're on the motion, says Madame Fortier, on the same motion. We're on the same motion. All right, so therefore, I will wait because my colleague will suggest an amendment, so I'll yield the floor. Monsieur Godin? Well, I was going to plead in favor of my position, but since we won the vote, I'll withdraw. Mr. Serré? Yes, thank you, Chair. Of course, committees are masters of their own destiny. And of course, as the government, we're a minority government, so quite often we we're on the losing end of the votes, even when the standing orders are in our favor. I think that the chair clearly explained the standing orders, in particular Chapter 20. A committee cannot censor a member of parliament. And the motion itself, well, we're back on the main motion, so I'd like to suggest some amendments. In the spirit of what we said earlier, Mr. Sanson and Mr. Beaulieu both spoke about the fact that it's important to see how we can solve this conundrum. The chair clearly said that no committee can censor an MP. No committee can tell another association what to do and how to do it. The members of those associations will decide. It's not within our purview. And maybe that association has some of our members and maybe not. Nevertheless, I think it's important that we send a message. We've said it. And Mr. Drouin has said it, what now, 7 times after tonight? That he apologized? So I have a suggestion in the spirit of what Ms. Ashton was suggesting, so that the committee states its position on the situation, which is something that the committee is allowed to do as per Chapter 20. So, as Mr. Sanson said, I think we need to tend an olive branch and see how we can solve this conundrum. So I will read this amendment, and I will ask the clerk to table this amendment and to distribute this amendment, rather, so that everyone has access to it, to make sure that everyone can read and study the amendment. And I see that the clerk has received the amendment. So it's following Mr. Godin's motion, given the obscene and offensive comments made by the Liberal MP for Glengarry Prescott Russell to a witness defending the cause of the French language in Quebec. Of course, we agree with that. We agree absolutely with that. It is decided that the committee asks the chair of the committee to apologize on behalf of the whole committee to the witnesses, Frédéric Lacroix and Gabriel Bourdon, apologize in writing. In other words, the committee will state clearly its position. It is within our purview. It will be made clear. And regarding the amendments of the whip and the Assemblée parlementaire de la francophonie, I mean, if the other parties don't want to respect the standing orders and the decision of the chair, which is not really the decision of the chair, it's really the decision of the standing orders. But of course, I mean, we're a minority here, the Liberals. We're going to lose that vote. But I'm just saying that the committee is allowed to do this. And why shouldn't we do this as a committee? Don't we all agree on this? Because personal excuses were expressed many times now. So, Mr. Clerk, has everybody received this motion? Mr. Serré, we're just going to suspend for just a few seconds. Make sure everybody has received the motion.